Almighty God, the source of knowledge and understanding, guide the minds of those who are about to take counsel together on matters concerning this county, that in their debate and in their decisions they may faithfully discharge the duties of their office and promote the health, safety and well-being of those they seek to serve. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this 240th meeting of the Council tonight. We'll begin with apologies for absence, please.
We have apologies from Councillor Hollis and Councillor Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. The Chairman's announcements. I haven't attended any civic functions, so those have not been circulated. However, the list of invitations will be circulated after the meeting. I would also just like to read out the following notice to anyone who's intending to record the meeting this evening. If you would like to film, blog, tweet or take photographs of the meeting, you are permitted to do so without causing disturbance to the meeting proceedings. A designated area has been set out to allow you to do this. Please be aware that you are not permitted to move outside the designated area as this may disrupt the meeting. A protocol which governs the activity has been placed on the table for your information. Please also be aware that members of the public who are not part of the meeting have not consented to being recorded, therefore please do not include them in any recording activity. And thank you for your cooperation. So we'll move to item number 2, announcements from the leader, members of the Cabinet or Head of Pay Service. This evening. Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. None this evening. So item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm the minutes of the 239th meeting of Rutland County Council held on the 10th of November 2014. Do I have a proposer for those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Beggy. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor King. All those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, Chair.
And against? And abstentions?
2 abstentions.
Sorry, was that 3 abstentions? Thank you. So item number 5, petitions, deputations and questions from members of the public. Mr. Brooks this evening.
Excuse me, Chairman, before I ask the questions, can I just explain the reason for asking the full council is that I think it's important for members just to know that I have approached the council.
Mr. Brooks, if I may stop you, I'm terribly sorry. The script that you submitted with the questions are the questions that we must have answered this evening, and we're not able to take any comments on those questions.
Yes, but I also have an issue with that, Chairman. I submitted 5 questions to this council, and I was whittled down to 3 and told that if I didn't accept... Can I just finish this? I'm not going to go on long. I just need to get this point across.
Mr. Brooks,
we're in a democratic society,
Mr.
and
Brooks,
I was told that I didn't accept...
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, may I adjourn the meeting please for a moment? Thank you.
Unfortunately, I thought Rutland County Council was democratic.
Mr. Brooks, I am going to continue with the meeting, so I now will reopen the meeting. I must ask you to stick to the script, or I will be forced to ask you to leave the meeting. So if I could please ask you to ask your questions in the order that you've submitted them this evening. You do have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question once your initial question has been answered.
I will have one.
Okay, so if you'd like to ask question number 1, please.
Okay. As you said, from the script. Number 1. Does the council feel it is appropriate to ignore laws specific to the returning officer? For example, a returning officer must not be in dispute with any candidate. The returning officer is still in dispute with myself, and I understand also the second largest political group on this council. What is the council going to do to rectify this before the 2015 elections?
Thank you for your question. Mr. Bailey, I believe you're going to answer that this evening.
The council is well aware of the laws and rules governing the returning officer. The duties of the returning officer are separate from that person's duty as a local government officer. As returning officer, she is not responsible to the local authority but is directly accountable to the courts as an independent statutory office holder. For this reason, the integrity of the returning officer's conduct of elections are strictly governed, regulated by the Electoral Commission, and a breach of the returning officer's duty without reasonable cause is in fact a criminal offence. You will be aware that the returning officer is not in dispute with you as a candidate in the forthcoming elections. In fact, as no notice of election has been posted, there are not as yet any candidates, so this question is in any case premature. That your question states that you consider yourself to be in dispute with the returning officer in her role as returning officer, chief executive of this council, or any kind of personal level, is a matter entirely for you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr Brooks, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes. So can the council please explain why Mr Hind, the East Midlands returning officer, says that the responsibility for this complaint falls at this table?
Mr Baker.
I have taken legal advice on this, and my answer remains the same.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr Brooks, would you like to ask your second question, please?
The returning officer over the years has been subjected to a number of complaints from various candidates. When I last stood for county, the returning officer was giving evidence in court against me in a case which I was found not guilty, and the evidence given was described by the district judge as mainly irrelevant. Can the council explain why they did not review the position of the returning officer at the time, and does the council not think it is time to review the position and perhaps swap with another authority such as Lincolnshire? That was just used as an example, it could be any authority.
Thank you. Mr Baker.
Mrs Briggs gave evidence in a criminal court case at the request of the Crown Prosecution Service. It is not relevant to her role as returning officer. As I said, the duties of Mrs Briggs as returning officer are separate from her duties as a local government officer and directly accountable to the courts as an independent statutory office holder. It is for this reason that the Electoral Commission exists as regulator and has set performance standards for returning officers and published their views accordingly. You will be well aware from your dealings with the Electoral Commission that they are entirely satisfied with the performance of the returning officer here and would actually be greatly perturbed were she to be replaced in the run-up to the general and local elections. Prior to the election you referred to, the view of the Electoral Commission was sought and they were unequivocal in their support for Mrs Briggs.
Mr Brooks, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, it's based on the content of my question, and that was the evidence. I would basically like to know whether the council, who have been told that they cannot indemnify their officers, will be asking Mrs Briggs to reimburse the officers' time and the cost of producing the document which the judge described as 3 pages were only irrelevant. I can't remember offhand now how many pages there were, but I believe there was over 200 to 300 pages.
I will repeat my first sentence. Mrs Briggs gave evidence in a criminal court case at the request of the Crown Prosecution Service. It is not relevant to her role as returning officer.
It is when you pay for it.
Would you like to ask your third question?
Yes. During the trial at Leicester Magistrates Court, D.S. MacDonald referred to the returning officer's statement. He pointed out concerns about the Chief Executive's reputation and standing within the Conservative Party nationally. Does the Council find its returning officer's public allegiance to the Conservative Party acceptable and a good example of impartiality?
Mr Baker.
Indeed. I'm not sure what D.S. MacDonald knew, said or knows about anyone's standing within the Conservative Party. As a member of that party and as leader of the Conservative group on this council, however, I can assure you that Mrs Briggs has both expressed and fully demonstrated her complete and utter political impartiality as an officer of this council.
Do you have a supplementary, Mr Brooks?
So can the Council explain why then it's on public record in a criminal statement that that is what she said?
Mr Baker.
My reply goes with the other two replies.
Mr Brooks, thank you for your questions. That is now the end of that particular item. So if I could ask you to attend to the public hearing. Thank you very much.
You haven't answered my questions.
Thank you very much. And we'll now move from the next agenda item.
Chair, could the leader please confirm whether all councillors have now provided their completely signed registers of interests? And if not, who hasn't?
Thank you. Councillor Bodo, please give your answer.
Signed registers have been received from all councillors with the exception of Councillor Richardson. Councillor Richardson has been reminded by the monitoring officer on numerous occasions of the need to submit his register.
Councillor Walters, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. Is there any remedy available to insist the register is supplied, or is there any penalty for failing to do so, or is it left to the public to draw their own conclusions on openness and transparency?
Councillor Hagan.
The Localism Act includes a requirement that a member or co-opted member of a relevant authority must, before the end of 28 days, beginning with the day on which the person becomes a member or co-opted member of the authority, notify the authority's monitoring officer of any disclosable pecuniary interest which the person has at the time when the notification is given. Failure to do so is a criminal offence. However, this law cannot be enforced for those members that were already elected when it was introduced in 2012, as the law cannot be applied retrospectively. It is for this reason that a conciliatory approach has been taken by the monitoring officer, and as yet no complaint has been made to the Conduct Committee. This situation will change, however, following the next elections when all elected and re-elected members will be subject to this law. Any member that fails to register their interest within the following 28 days will be referred to the Conduct Committee and face prosecution. In the meantime, the public can make up their own mind about a councillor who hides his affairs and fails to comply with the sentiment, if not the exact letter of the law.
Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on to item number 7 this evening. Referral of committee decisions to the council.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. And item number 8, calling of decisions from cabinet meetings during the period from 11th of November 2014 to 9th of January 2015 inclusive.
None received, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. The report from the cabinet under item 9, that is for noting only, so we will move straight on from that to item number 10, reports from committees of the council.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Reports from scrutiny commission or scrutiny panels.
Again, none received.
Thank you. So we'll move to item number 12, joint arrangements and external organisations. Would anybody like to say anything this evening? Councillor Baines.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Since the last council meeting, I have attended 3 things as a representative of the council. The Rural Community Council, and I think the interest there for members is that, like a lot of semi-voluntary organisations, they are having to respond to the new climate in local government and not do anything other than tender things. From our point of view, the community spirit is part of that. The second main thing is whether or not the building currently occupied and owned by the Rural Community Council should remain in ownership, or whether a smaller, more efficient building would be more appropriate. Those are the main things there, Madam Chairman. The other 2 things, Rutland Water Partnership, where the report from National England, significant one, which deals with the next 10 years, again from the point of view of this council, there is no current intention to increase the size of the Ramshar site or the SSI, and therefore, from a planning point of view, the Rutland Water area remains the same for the foreseeable future. Should species, I gather, go over the current boundary, then National England might come back with different proposals. And linked to that, I attend the Rutland pilot scheme, and the most recent meeting was on last Friday. We do now have an officer in post, and one of the things that she has been charged with doing is making sure that there is local community engagement. I did speak to the leader outside this meeting, and one of the ways I think will be to attend a Rutland partnership meeting, but equally at parish level. Again, I think it might be appropriate for a future parish council forum. And that is what I've been doing, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. Any other members this evening? Councillor Ball and then Councillor Beggy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just thought it appropriate to report on the fire authority. As members will recall, just prior to Christmas we had what I hope you agreed is a very professional presentation from the Chief Fire Officer, Mr. Webb, on the economic, on the financial position going forward, and I think those that were able to attend found that a very useful session. What I would report on that particular matter is that officers of the Fire Authority are continuing to work on cost-saving measures. I was hoping to be able to report a little more on that this evening, but certainly I think I will have the information. I have to attend a meeting this Wednesday, so at the next council meeting I will be able to give put some substance onto agreed savings going forward, which I think is particularly good news. The second item, which I thought would be pertinent, I think most members will know, of course, that there was a significant fire prior to Christmas at Pilmings Road, and I thought just a little bit of detail would be encouraging to members. I would have to say at the outset, my position still remains that I am working for no cuts within the Rutland setup as far as our fire is concerned, fire brigade is concerned. But I think members will know, on the 19th of December there was a significant fire in Pilmings Road. Now this particular site, this particular property, is deemed as a site-specific risk with a 4 appliance attendance. So you know that we audit various businesses around the whole county, they have ratings as to whether they, and this one was 4 appliance specific, so it immediately means that 4 fire units have to be brought into play. Now it just so happens that within an hour just before, there had been an automatic response, fire response from Reed Plastics, RPC, which meant that the 2 units were out from our Oakham station. But nevertheless, the call went out at 18:09, and within 6 minutes, the first Oakham appliance was in attendance. Because our second appliance was actually at RPC, and it's a 4 unit specific, Bilston were next to arrive, Bilston, at 18:21, followed by Melton Mowbray at 18:35, and then Oakham's second unit was released because that incident had been dealt with, and that arrived at 18:36. So we had all 4 units there, certainly within the first one within the 10-minute criteria. The fire was in a big building, 50 metres by 50 metres, 3 stories high. So later we had the high ladder unit came so that it could be directed down, the water could be directed downwards. And I certainly read in the paper that in all 8 units were supplied. And that meant we had cross-border from Stamford helping and all over. So it does show, the Chief Fire Officer mentioned resilience, and it does show the resilience of the station and the fire authority across the borders. Because the Oakham units were into play, what we actually did, they then called out from Market Deeping one of their fire units, which then parked in the Oakham station to take yet another call should there be another incident. So this brief resume is just to really outline the resilience of the service and the way that it actually works when you have a fairly significant fire. The fire was contained, it was put out, and I think from our leader, I think we were saying the fire brigade were congratulated for the professional way that they dealt with that. So I think it's a good news story. Having said that, I'm still working to ensure that we have the minimum disruption going forward to our service in Rutland as a county. Thank you.
Councillor Oxford.
I have a question on the back of that, Madam Chairman. I'm surprised to hear that the Uppingham unit wasn't caught. Market, Melton Mowbray and Bilston, but no mention of the Uppingham unit, which presumably is the closest.
No, very obvious question. The Uppingham unit, as you would have taken, I'm not sure if you were at the presentation, it's not always available, quite frankly. It is crewed by people who work in and around the town, and there is a logging in and logging off system. And because of work demands, and perhaps people on holiday or sick, that unit had been signed out for that particular afternoon. And that very often is the case. I think the figure was that it is normally 60% available in Uppingham because of the nature of that particular hub. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Dale and then Councillor Blues.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I through you ask Councillor Bull if the meeting on Wednesday, if he could let us know before the next council meeting, because if anything that we need to debate at my next scrutiny panel on the 29th, I will bring it in under AOB.